You are listening to the Objects of Affection collection. Study 90. Christie sold $2.7 billion in art secretly last year. Here's why that should alarm you. How the art market's private auction turns perfect the architecture of speculation, and why secrecy without the custodian's contract is only darkness. Fine art auction sales rose 13.3% to $11.7 billion in 2025, and the institutional apparatus celebrated. But the art market's recovery narrative conceals a structural migration that the headline figure cannot explain, the wholesale flight of the ultra-wealthy from the public saleroom into invitation-only private auction environments. Christie's secret invite-only sales, including reported transactions for a Rothko at approximately $195 million, and a Van Gogh at approximately $200 million, and the emergence of Fair Warning's dark mode format at Clement Bar represent not an evolution of the market, but the refinement of its most ancient pathology. The conversion of art into a privately transacted hollowed object. This study deploys the PLCFA critical lexicon, specifically anti-speculative autonomy, custodian's contract, anti-sale covenant, zero-sum aura, speculative capital and semantic burden, to diagnose the private auction turn as an upgrade of speculation's operating system, not its abolition. Secrecy is not stewardship. Exclusivity is not ethics. The darkness of dark mode is not the darkness of the monastic veto, it is the darkness of the vault. This study names the difference and proposes what genuine post-speculative institutional architecture requires. The $11.7 billion recovery and its structural concealment. When ArtNet reported that fine art auction sales had risen 13.3% to $11.7 billion in 2025, the institutional apparatus invoked the language of health. The art market had stabilized, the spectacle had returned. The brief that the tyranny of the archive demolished still circulates at cocktail hours. The market recovered. What the headline conceals is architectural. Of the $11.7 billion, growth was concentrated almost entirely in the $10 million and above tier, a 36.1% year-over-year jump to $2.3 billion, representing works numbering in the hundreds, not the thousands. Ultra-contemporary art, the speculative frontier that defined the 2021-2022 boom, contracted by nearly 70% from peak. The financialization of luxury did not reverse, it elevated, it tightened, it removed itself from public view. Simultaneously, and this is the structural fact the headline cannot hold, Christie's disclosed that its 3 top-grossing works in 2025 were sold not in any saleroom but privately. Sotheby's private sales reached $1.2 billion. Christie's private sales reached $1.5 billion. Combined, the two houses moved nearly $2.7 billion in art without a paddle, a lot number, a public estimate, a recorded result, or a witness outside the room. The 2025 recovery is not a return to health, it is the perfection of concealment. The market did not come back into the light. It learned to operate permanently in the dark. This is not a corruption of the market. It is the market's logical destination, absent structural intervention. The speculative capital that has governed the art world since at least the 1980s has always required opacity to function. Public auctions were always a theatre, a price discovery mechanism whose real function was not discovery but confirmation, the legitimization of values that had already been privately negotiated. Dark mode is not the market's betrayal of the public interest. It is the public interest's absence made manifest. The anatomy of dark mode. What Fair Warning formalized on November 19, 2025. While Christie's main saleroom was mid-auction at Rockefeller Center, a small group of market insiders left the building and walked to Clement Bar at 11 Madison Park. There, Loic Gouza's Fair Warning platform conducted an invitation-only auction for a single work, Andy Warhol's Brigitte Bardot, 1974, estimated at $8.12 million. It sold for $16.7 million. The guests were handpicked. The result produced no public estimate, no public challenge period, no public loss rate. Only a number and the status it conferred on everyone in the room. Gouza describes his model as a hybrid, the competitive dynamic of the auction married to the discretion of the private sale. This framing is precise and revealing. Secrecy, exclusivity and the theatre of bidding, but only for those who have already been screened, approved and invited. The competitive dynamic is preserved not as a market mechanism, but as an experience architecture. It makes the high bidder feel the friction of competition without ever exposing their identity. Their tax situation,